Hello and welcome to the Homeschool Oklahoma podcast. I'm Jonathan Bartlett, your host. Today, I sat down to talk with Haley Williams from the Kindled podcast to talk about her homeschooling journey, both as a homeschooler herself and as a homeschooling mom. All right, so hello and welcome to the Homeschool Oklahoma podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Haley, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where people can find you online?
I have a podcast called Kindled Podcast, and so you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. And then I have an Instagram page at Haley HALEY.kindled, and recently launched a Substack where I'll be writing and kind of hosting, I guess, the writing portion of everything that I do online.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so, how'd you come to start your podcast? What was kind of
Yeah.
the inspiration for it?
It was honestly, it was just I was spitballing ideas with my husband. This was about 6 years ago, sitting on the couch one night and was like, man, I just really feel like I think I was in a spot. We were in a church where I didn't feel like I had a lot of solid community to have conversations with on deeper topics, things I was thinking
Mm,
about. And at the time, not thankfully now that's not the case, but he kind of threw out the idea of a podcast. And I said, well, I don't even know what I would talk about. That seems kind of random, and I'm not sure that that's really the best thing. And I don't have a plan.
mhm.
But anyway, he knew my skills and kind of bent better than I did. And he ordered a podcast microphone that night. So 2 days later, it showed up from Amazon, and he was like, here you go, get started. So it was really kind of him giving me the nudge, just from our own conversations. And so, yeah, the theme at the time was work, motherhood, and the grace we need for both because I was a
Mhm.
young mom. I was building my own business at the time, starting to kind of get a little bit more into theology and topics around Christianity and culture. And so as I as I did, I wanted a place to talk about all of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married?
14 years.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, how old are your kids?
I have four girls,
Oh,
one that's
wow.
almost 11, a 9-year-old, almost 6, and a 1-year-old.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so, how do you balance having a podcast with homeschooling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, it is a balance. It is a little bit of a dance, but at the same time, I think there has to be one one priority. Something has that number one spot in your day, in your life. And obviously for me, that's going to be my kids and homeschooling. So if there's when there does come those times where there's a tension and I have to choose, then it's not even really it's not a difficult choice. It's okay if I can't publish, if I have to bump an interview and I can't get an episode out this week, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And thankfully when you podcast for yourself, it's I'm not, beholden to anyone else. It's really on my own schedule. So I can determine what rhythm works best for me. And I used to publish like religiously once a week before I homeschooled when my kids were in full-time private school. I could make that work, right? Because they were
Yeah.
all gone. I had preschool hours and such. And when we chose to homeschool a couple years ago, that was also a choice to not put the podcast first. And so it hasn't really been too much of a struggle just because that's the choice that I've made. And I'm like happy with that choice. That's what I want to be doing. And so really it's just I fit it into the margin of my day in my life and, record either during baby nap or, yeah, when my husband can be on for an hour and,
Mhm.
give me some time or sometimes in the evenings, just whatever works with the guest. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, you kind of have to pick like what's my number one priority and that kind of settles the internal struggle of being all things to all people. It's like you have you know, your priorities straight and it's not as much of a battle, I guess.
Yeah. Well, speaking of making choices, I'm curious what went into your choice to move from private schooling to homeschooling.
Oh, that's like a lot. I would say primarily the time. We wanted more time with our kids. I
Mhm.
was homeschooled myself, so in the back of my mind, I knew it was an amazing education and I loved my life growing up as a homeschooler, and then I did hybrid school a little bit later. But I would say as a young mom early on with my oldest when she was going into kindergarten, I was the type of person who said I will never homeschool. Like I could never, it's just not me. I'm not patient enough. I'm sure you hear that all the time. I would never do that, could never. But when you start seeing your kids get older and you see how fast time goes with each subsequent child, and it just goes, I mean, that first year goes faster and faster. And suddenly you've got, double digits, and you're realizing, man, like I'm not spending the majority of their waking hours with them, and someone else is getting the best of them. And, teachers are telling me things I know about my kid, but I'm not getting to see those things, in their
Right.
day, the ways they're excelling academically or being kind to others. And then for my girls' own friendships, like I wanted them to be close and have close relationships. And they just didn't have the time after school, and they were tired. They were at their worst with each other. They were, hungry, came home drained from a long day. And then you try and like work in sports or anything extracurricular, and it's like, where does the family time go? And how does the family have any meaningful time together? And it was just not really working for us lifestyle wise. And then, I think there was the issue that was secondary, but of with private school, there's a perception, I think, often that, at least for me, there was a false understanding that, everyone was there for the same reasons. It was a
Mm.
Christian private school, and I
Mhm.
thought, oh, we all kind of we have the same beliefs, we probably have the same values and ethics, we're maybe raising our kids the same. And that turned out to not be true. And so as you become less naive and realize, oh, like we're not all here for the same reasons. We're not parenting the same. I might not even want my kid doing a play day with some of these kids, and yet they're spending 7, 8 hours a day with them. It just kind of starts to, make you scratch your head and go, like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm kind of signing off basically that I'm partnering not just with this school to educate my kids, but I'm also partnering with these other families. And I didn't actually want to do that. And so I think we both kind of came to that realization around the same time, thankfully, and we're really on the same page about that move. And so it was definitely scary to make the choice just because of the unknown of like, what if the kids hate it? They have friends. Obviously, it's a big change, but our family has thrived and absolutely loved it. And the girls, I mean, now when we drive past the school, they're like, oh, imagine if we were in there. Like they just, there's zero part of them that wants to go back, or, misses it to that degree. I mean, and we still see friends that they have from that school. So yeah, it's been great.
I haven't calculated it myself, but I've heard it said that when you homeschool, you get 10,000 hours more with your kids, and I just think
Hmm.
that's such a blessing.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and it's, I think what I'm realizing more and more is like homeschooling is not so much about the school, but it is about the family. It is
Mhm.
about, we're not doing school at home, we're homeschooling, we're being a family together. And
Yes.
I've called it parenting with books. I'm really parenting with books, and that's what makes it hard too, because you are parenting all day, and yet you're also the teacher, the educator, but primarily you're the parent, first of all, and you're the family. Um, and so I think that's what is amazing and difficult about homeschooling. And it's just two sides of the same coin. But hard is not the same thing as bad. And so just because something is hard, and it's hard to be, to never get a quote unquote break in that
Mhm.
sense. Of course I do get breaks, but
Right.
um, to not have some official, like, I'm going to drop you off somewhere every week at a certain time. Now they did just start a co-op for the first time in 2 years, so we'll see how that goes. And they were excited, but that's like one day a week. So, anyways, it's been wonderful. I would say overall, like there's just not been a single second that I have thought, oh, I wish we were doing something else. Even in the very worst moments, there's never been a time where I thought, I don't know if this is right, or it's too hard, or anything like that. It's hard because parenting is hard, and that
Yeah,
doesn't mean you don't want to be a parent, right? It means that it's hard.
exactly. So as both a homeschooling child and a homeschooling parent, you know, tell us a little bit about your experience as a homeschooler and how that kind of influences the way that you yourself homeschool.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I think that for me personally, I'm the oldest of five kids, and so I learned to be very self-directed from a, early on young age, just by virtue of the fact that I had to be.
Hmm.
Birth order probably plays into that somewhat, but yeah, my mom had, oops, hold on. Sorry. This is like a bad connection here. My mom had four other kids, so I learned to, open my school books, get started on my own, kind of get through the pages I needed to do. Um, we spent a lot of time reading. I do remember that. My mom would sit on the couch with us and read to us about all different kinds of things. Those were the times that I think were the most formative, and um, those are the times that I picture when I picture my homeschooling years is the time that we spent as a family reading about like the feudal system or something, just different periods in history that when you're hearing about it for the first time, these things like just get burned into your memory. And I mean, you're a sponge, you're absorbing everything. And when you're talking about it and learning with your siblings, that was really formative. So, um, I didn't come to homeschooling with any real like plan or curriculum philosophy, but as the last 2 years have progressed, I've become more and more convinced that, reading good books together is the best
Mm.
thing that we can do. And
Yeah.
so I would say we're Charlotte Mason inspired, but we're very eclectic. I'm eclectic just as a person. And so, they still have a grammar curriculum. We're still doing, some book work, but by and large, the emphasis is on reading and then them narrating back to me what we talked about and starting to incorporate some written narrations as well. But that's kind of I want the culture of our homeschool to feel um, a lot like mine did, where reading was the focus. They're still learning to be independent and self-directed, but that's kind of the meat of what we're doing together.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so you have a big emphasis on entrepreneurialism. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's born out of I think just the family that I come from. Both my parents are really creative and entrepreneurial. My dad started a business the year I was born, and struggled a lot financially when they were five. When I was five, they had to sell our car, and he was walking me to the grocery store in a wagon. Or actually, no, they didn't sell the car. The bank repossessed the car. And
Mm.
we were going to the grocery store and in the wagon, and I was like, "Where is our car, Dad?" And he said, "The bank took it." And I said, "Well, what do they need it for?" And those are like my earliest memories was growing up in a really, just a small little duplex, not having a car. And so I think that as my dad's business grew, today it's a multi-million dollar snow removal and landscaping business, and he's really successful. As it started to grow, when I was about 9, 10 years old, I think he really started to talk to us kids about how we could um, use whatever skills or abilities God had given us to think outside the box. Think like, what could you do for someone? And he would ask me this, like, what is something you could do that someone would pay you for? Um, and at first I was like, oh, well, I could learn how to do this. I could go to college for that. And he's like, no, no, that's not what I mean. What could you do today, right now, with what you know how to do, with the things you're good at or interested in? How could you use that to charge someone and provide value to them, and so that was a question I was being asked at 9 or 10, and so it's something that I continued to kind of think on through my adolescence, and we talked about. And I was a writer very early on. I was advanced in grammar, was like a year or two ahead in my grammar curriculum, which most kids like don't want to do that, so it's kind of weird if you have a kid who is like, can I do more Shirley Grammar, Mom? And so I
I
was
want to
like,
diagram more sentences.
yeah, but I did. And so, I'm at eighth grade level in sixth grade, and they're like, okay, clearly you like writing, you like words. And I knew from high school, early high school years, that I wanted to go to school for journalism, did that. But I guess my point is that because we had that conversation from such a young age, that question was something I was thinking about the whole time, and it informed how I thought about what I was good at, how I contemplated what I wanted to go to school for. And so that's just something that we've modeled with our girls is, looking at their skills, their abilities, what's already embedded inside of them. What are you interested in? How could you provide value to someone? And so we have Just last year is kind of when we started this, but really facilitated them getting creative around the neighborhood. And so they've designed flyers in Canva. I have a Canva course, like training people how to use Canva as a platform. And anyway, they took that course and then they learned how to design a flyer in Canva, advertised a business to our neighbors called Three Sisters Gardening and Three Sisters Baking. And so they didn't want to pick, so they were like, let's see what people want and what people are interested in. And so they've got multiple clients now. They did one round where we let them bake like 12 dozen cookies and they took pre-orders and went around and brought those to the neighbors, sold those. That led to another baking deal for our church where they made 10 Texas sheet cakes for a volunteer event and got paid to do that. Um, just again, word of mouth, just friends or, friends from church seeing that they were doing this. And then they've gotten several gigs with neighbors watching, watering flowers, watching pets, feeding fish while people are out of town. And so they're learning responsibility through that and showing
Yeah.
up and going, like walking down the street to the neighbor's house when it's hot out and when you'd rather be watching a show or, just working hard, listening, following directions, making sure the person is going to come home and be happy with, the service they got. And it's just been great. I mean, then with baking, of course, I expect them and they have to clean up the mess when they're done. Like I'm not coming in and
Right.
doing it all for them. Like if you're going to do this, you're going to
Right.
actually do it from start to finish. You're going to pay me back for supplies, all of that. So, yeah, it's been great just to see them kind of get really excited about. It's not so much about the money, it's just about like actually doing something meaningful for someone that they need and that the girls realize that they can do. And so that's been really fun.
So one thing I wanted to I picked up on while you're talking is that this started as a kind of a comment from your dad that you've just been
Hmm.
mulling over uh, for years, and that's one thing that I think about homeschooling is that the number of times that we have to shape we just have so many more times that we can shape
Hmm.
our kids and shape how they view the world, and sometimes it's not even in the curriculum that we choose or um, the things that we explicitly teach. Sometimes it's just the way that we approach things and the questions that we ask them can kind of set them on a direction
Right.
that's gonna last their whole lives.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think that's the setting your kids up for that, I think is just amazing.
Yeah.
So did they wind up doing the gardening as well, or did they focus more on the baking?
Yeah, I guess the gardening kind of turned into like I should, when I said gardening, it included, we can kind of take care of your yard, water
Mhm.
flowers, or do like actual gardening for you. And just by virtue of the time that we launched, it was too late in the season to really do like planting, but
Right.
I think they'll probably want to try again this spring and see, if they can get in early with you. We have a neighborhood, obviously, like most, where you've got some elderly people who probably need help getting stuff in the ground or weeding. And yeah, so they've done a little bit of that, but I think they really love the baking.
So are they enjoying the business side of it too, or what's the how do they feel about all that?
Yeah, I mean, so they're young. My oldest is almost 11. 11 and 9 are the ones kind of driving it, and then the almost 6-year-old kind of tags along and helps out however she can. But yeah, they love that. They walked, they printed off, like I said, they designed the flyers. I printed those for them. And then we walked door to door and they did sales, and they
Hmm.
knocked on doors and handed out flyers and had to explain, hey, we're your neighbor, we're down the street, this is what we're doing, text our mom or call our mom if you're interested. And so that I think was also invaluable, just talking with adults, looking them in the eye, being confident, learning how to stare someone in the eye when you're speaking and not like looking at the ground or looking away because, that's obviously a not a very respectful way to approach someone when you're knocking on their door. And so yeah, so that was great. And then they don't have phones, so they're not really doing the interaction. I'm kind of handling that with the client, but yeah, I did make them manage, the orders that they took from the cookies. So I printed off a list of like the names, the addresses, who ordered how much, and they had to manage that and make sure that they had all of it. And then we've just put the money in their bank accounts that is, tied to ours. And so, They're not big spenders. They're like
Yeah.
they're very penny pinching. So they haven't wanted to spend the money, but I think it feels good to them to know that like we worked for that and it's there. And that's my money, so they've checked with me. Are you sure you put the money in my account? I'm like, yes. So,
Awesome. So
yeah.
did you is that something that you encouraged them to do at the outset, or is that something they came up with? How did that initially go? How do you initially kind of bring that?
Yeah, I mean, really the same way that my dad did, just ask the question, what could you guys do? What are you good at? What skills do you have? How can I help you? And through brainstorming together, those were the two things that we kind of landed on was gardening services or yard services and baking and baked goods, rather than like walking dogs, because
Mhm.
that's just a lot more, there's more risk involved, right? Like, what if you get a bad dog or a dog
Yeah,
doesn't like you or something? They're a little too young to do like full on house sitting or pet sitting, that sort of thing. So, anyway, so yeah, it just kind of was conversation that we had together, probably around the dining room table one day last fall. And so it kind of morphed into that.
cool.
Yeah.
Now you also encourage moms to do entrepreneurial things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's maybe less that I encourage them to do that, but I mean, I think the ideal is if you don't have to work as a
Hmm.
homeschool mom, that's the ideal. Like that's the
Yeah.
dream. You don't want to have to work. But there's a lot of women who I'm connected with online on my through my podcast and my Instagram page that tell me that they would love to homeschool or that they are trying to homeschool with a full-time job and it's very difficult, and or they would love to homeschool but they can't leave their job, and
Mm.
that's a tension that they're trying to figure out, or the husband is said you need to bring in an income, so if you can make that work then yes you can homeschool. But and so I think it's really born out of more of a way of like, how can I empower and help those moms who want that to
Hmm.
become more income independent, and how can I help them do exactly what my dad did for me and see what am I good at? What skills do I have? How could I provide value to someone? What do I already possess? And then is there something that's just, a little bit beyond my reach where I can learn, I can study, I can take an online course, I can become certified in something, I can be an apprentice to someone else where I could actually create for myself a revenue stream that is not attached to an employer, but is really dependent on myself. And, really going directly to a customer and saying, like, how can I provide value to this person? How can I, provide accounting services or bookkeeping, or become, skilled in graphic design, or open an in-home daycare, or whatever it may be. There's so many different options for moms that can be really flexible around your time availability, your resources, your own skills. And there's not really one right answer for every woman. It's very dependent, of course, on who you are, what you can do, what your background is. A lot of us worked before we had kids, so maybe it's tied to your former career, or maybe it is your current, what you're doing right now in your job, and maybe you can become a contractor and do that on the side. Maybe you can even talk to your employer about transitioning to a contractor role and not be necessarily um, full time, 40 hours a week, but say like, hey, I want to transition this, but I still want to work with you guys. How could we make this work? A lot of women do that, and I think sometimes it's just uh you have to get creative and you have to be willing to kind of ask those questions and pose those conversations and think creatively about your skills and abilities. And so yeah, so how I do that is, I guess, I created a course called Business Basics that is all online, that women can take, and it gives them a mile wide and an inch deep of kind of all of the things that I wish I would have known starting out. So how
Mm-hmm.
to pick a good um pick a good business idea for your skills, abilities, interests, like that profitable, perfect business idea for you. It's going to be different for all of us. How to determine a target market, how to create packages that emphasize value over trading time for money, because we all want to get out of the time for money game, right? You
Yeah,
have a limited amount of hours in a day, and you really don't want to have to give away 8 hours a day to
exactly.
to make money. So training them to kind of think more that way and think about providing value, branding, logo, email, building an email list, all of the things kind of that you figure out as you're going. And this is just everything is in one place with kind of walkthrough PDFs where they can, you know, set their, design that business as we're going through the course together. So that's been fun to see women do that. And, I have moms that have done their paintings and they're creating paintings and they're looking to sell that. And, all kinds of things.
What's the
Women,
most kind of creative out there job you've seen someone take up?
oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have like a creative out there. I feel like what I see maybe more than that is I see women looking to like not reinvent the wheel.
Hmm.
I almost think that's the thing that trips people up is they think they have to come up with some crazy new business or concept that no one else is doing, when
Right.
in reality, like almost anyone could, for instance, start watching one or two other kids in your
Mm.
home. Now, not everyone
Right.
wants to do that, but like there is a need in your community for that. I would guarantee it. There is a need in your community for cleaning homes. That's something you could take your older kids along with you or do in the afternoon or the evening when your husband is home from work. Or there is a need for, um, you know, what's another one? Oh, bookkeeping is a really
Mhm.
good one. I mean, accounting, those are really, really good. These virtual assistants, that's maybe a new frontier, if you could say there is one. There's just so much you can do online that women can do in the afternoons after their kids are done with school, they're playing, early mornings on your own time, in the evenings after they've gone to bed. So virtual assistants, I say maybe that would be a good example of something that's a little bit, new in the last 10, 15 years that
Right.
and that can look so different for everyone. You might emphasize and kind of specialize in social media marketing or content creation or graphic design or admin work and responding to people's emails. You may do bookkeeping, accounting. There's just a lot of options. So it depends on what your skills are, your interests are, and what you're willing to learn. But I mean, a lot of these things are not it's not prohibitive for you, even if you don't have that experience today. Like you can
Right.
learn to bookkeep. I mean, really anyone could. A lot of us have to do it for ourselves anyways, for our own homes, we do our taxes. Nobody loves to do it. Well, some people do, but only the weirdos love that stuff.
Right.
But if you are, I think, driven enough and if you want to create that income independence, I think kind of the sky's the limit for you.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that a lot of these opportunities are actually a lot closer at hand than
Yeah.
than you might imagine.
Yes, I think that a lot of people, yeah, psych themselves out by thinking that starting a business is this big, scary, big step. In reality, all you have to do is post on your Facebook timeline, "Hey, I'm available to do this. I'm interested in this. Let me know if you know anyone looking." Like, I have this ability to do this and I have this many slots per week. Spread the word,
Yeah.
share it if you know. I mean, that's literally there you go. You started a business. Now, the next step is maybe you start a Facebook page or an Instagram or, and further down the line, you might design a website. But that's most people go about it backwards and they think I need to get a logo first, a website. I need to have this branding. I need to go pay thousands of dollars for all of this. That is just not true. You should not do that. Don't do that. It's really not about all of the front facing things. Like you have so many people operating very successful businesses and they have no website. And I'm not saying that that's the standard,
Right.
but I think that people have a very misconceived idea that it's all about the consumer facing stuff that we look at and they think that's all required. But in reality, if you have someone who's willing to pay you to do something, then you've got a business. And so, maybe it's scraping popcorn off ceilings and painting or painting furniture
Hmm.
or I'm doing interior design or styling or any number of things. But we all are connected to networks, and Yeah, so it's really as simple as just asking around, putting your name out there, sending an email to people. And these are all the things that these programs teach you anyways. If you buy a, sending a cold email, how to do this, like that's all they're ultimately teaching you how to do is tell people, "Hey, I'm doing this in a creative way." And
Mhm.
and are you interested? And spread the word, share my name if you hear of anyone. And that's an easy way to, text your family and friends. One of the programs I bought early on literally was like a lesson was send an email and a text to your family and friends. That's
Right.
so I think sometimes they think there's some huge, missing piece to it. And it's really, I think we just have to simplify and kind of get back to basics.
Yeah. That's a good point. Um, and what's great about these, a lot of the things you're saying work so well with also having a family and having
Hmm.
a homeschool.
Yeah,
And the nice thing about homeschooling is that it doesn't take nearly as long as regular school. So
right. Definitely. Yeah, that's a huge, huge perk.
now going back as a homeschooler who's now homeschooling, um, what is it that you think this generation of new homeschooling moms need to know and learn uh, to be more effective in and intentional about how they homeschool?
Yeah. Well, how spiritual do you want me to get?
As spiritual as you want to get.
Okay. I would say just that, the most important thing we're imparting to our kids is discipleship and
Mhm.
discipling them in the truth of God's word. And the time that you get through homeschooling is, I think, the biggest blessing of the choice to homeschool. Of course, control over curriculum is great. Getting to customize to your kids' interests is great, but really the time to discipleship, to disciple them and have discipleship conversations. If we have one deep conversation a day and miss science that day, or we miss the writing curriculum, or someone doesn't do whatever it is. I mean, that's to me a win. I would
Mhm.
rather that's more important to me because we're sending our kids out into a culture that is hostile, that is, anti-God, that is humanistic, that is going to tell them that everything we've poured into them is foolishness, is error. And so I want my kids to be really strong and firm in their faith and what they believe. And I believe it's my job to equip them and to really teach our home or treat our home as though it's kind of an apologetics. It's a place for them to ask those questions, to challenge things, to ask, well, why does it say that, or how can that be true? Well, let's find out together. Let's go read this. Let's like dig into the Bible. We do a curriculum called Foundation Worldview, which has been really great for those conversations and comparing and contrasting, Islam with New Age spirituality and just different, I mean, world religions, conversations around what do they believe, what do we believe, and I think just further solidifying them in their own convictions. I would say today, I recently realized as I was talking, if I wanted to change my 11-year-old daughter's mind on God being real, Jesus having died for her sins, and her chief end being to glorify God and enjoy Him forever, I could not change her mind if I wanted to.
That's
Like
awesome.
I mean, and I would say that's a good thing, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be able to convince her away from the truth. But because by the age of 10, a kid's worldview is largely formed. So those early years are extremely formative. And I think it's critical to start those conversations young. I mean, our 6-year-old is involved in those every day. She doesn't pick up all of it, but she's hearing the truth, and I know seeds are being planted. And so I would just say like equipping them with truth to glorify God in a godless culture and to stand firm in what they believe and to just be ready to stand firm and to be a light, but also realize that just like Jesus said, if they hated me, they will hate you, and to be like strong enough, thick-skinned enough, and have an eternal perspective on things to be okay with that, to
Right.
not need to be liked by everyone. And that's another plus, I guess, of being homeschooled. Not that you're disliked, but it kind of takes you out of the rat race of being well, what is that girl wearing? What's the newest backpack? What's the newest this? Oh, well, they're playing that sport, so I have to play. It removes you a little bit from that. So you can build those muscles so that when you go out in the culture, you're not, kind of have this atrophied musculature from never having worked those things. It's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't care about those things. And even though I may struggle to care and realize I don't want to, I've also been discipled and shepherded in truth for so long that I have a firm foundation.
Yeah, that's one thing. I tell people that they should encourage their kids to ask questions while they are in their homeschool
Yeah.
because you want them to explore those things while
Hmm.
they're surrounded by people who love them, who can
Hmm.
shepherd them through their questions,
Right.
rather than waiting until they're surrounded by atheist professors who want to shepherd them in a
Hmm.
different way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I went to one of the most liberal schools in Kansas, University of Kansas, and in my Eastern religions class, my professor said that truth was subjective, and I raised my hand and said, I disagree. I think truth is absolute, and I think things really are black and white.
Mhm.
And he said, I feel bad for you in front of the whole class. And I was just like, I kind of laughed and rolled my eyes to myself because I knew that going in that that was what I was going to encounter. Like I had a foundation and it didn't shake me. I didn't go, "Oh my goodness, my professor
Yeah.
said this and that goes against everything I've ever heard." It was like we had these conversations for years and years and years, and I had taken a 4-year worldviews course, so I was well equipped to know this guy is like New Age Eastern mysticism. We can all take a different path to enlightenment and truth, and it just didn't shake me at all. Whereas
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids who didn't have that kind of discipleship would go into that environment and potentially be like, what is truth? I have no idea. This is a new, I've never heard this before. Like,
Yeah.
what if he's right? What if everything I heard is wrong? And if you only have a youth group in Sunday school faith, and that's the only time you've been talking about God for 12 years, um, yeah, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah. Well, Haley, thank you so much for joining us. We've had a great conversation, and can you tell us again just where people can find you online? If
Yeah, yeah. My podcast website is kindledpodcast.com. You can find me on Instagram at haley.kindled, haley.kindled, and on Substack at haley.kindled.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Homeschool Oklahoma podcast. Homeschool Oklahoma is an organization dedicated to promoting, protecting, encouraging, and equipping homeschooling families across the state. Please sign up for our newsletter at hsok.org. If you'd like to further help our cause of maintaining homeschooling freedoms in Oklahoma, we hope that you will consider joining with a paid membership as well. Thank you for listening.